Hey people, this is the Song of Solomon 7. He's an asshole licker. Prove me wrong. I don't search these out. It's just that this is what the whole Bible's about. You know, I finished up my last movie, then I go back and I try to backtrack and figure out where I was reading before because I'm all over. And I ended up over here reading this and it just didn't look right. You know, it's a love song. You know, and over here at 8, he says, I said I would go up the palm tree and I would take hold of its branches and let be now your breasts like clusters of the vine and the fragrance of your breath like apples and the roof of your mouth like wine, the best. And the wine goes down. And you can see they had to add all this because it's not there. It's just this goes, They're trying to say it's the word walk, but it's actually who lick, H-O-W-E-O-W-L-K. Who goes down, who lick for my beloved, of duty, D-O-U-D-I, duty. Duty has become our word for duty, shit. Oh, you licked duty. And you can see it's the same word here. Here's with the L, but the next time it comes up without the L. This is the base word. And they'll say it's your uncle or love, beloved, the loved one. So I don't believe YouTube's going to let me give any visuals with this. But this symbol right here tells me at one time there was visuals to go with this. And where they split this up, I just don't like it. This doesn't fit unless it's connected right here. But you could tell pretty easy, either King Solomon was an idiot or they mistranslated this, I of my beloved and toward me his desire. Come, my beloved, let us go forth to the field. Let us lodge in the villages. So I was reading up at the top and it was a little difficult, and it's usually easier, if you go to the end and read and it'll give you the clues, then you go back at the top and you get it better. And so it looks like they tried to clean it up with the Greek. And your mastes so was in a truce, in a truce. Something is trucive, it's poking out there, not like clusters of grapes, but in a truce. Your mastes so was in a truce, poking out there. And this ample of, and they're trying to turn this into a vineyard, but it's not. The amp was the big container. They say that the amp is the same place your word amphibian comes from, and they'll say it means both sides because the container had handles on both sides. But it means ample. It means plenty of. In order to cover up these writings, they've twisted all of our language, impossible. And they'll say the word amphibian, comes from amphibious, which means to live a double life, which is, they're saying the hibbies, inhabits. And they're saying the amp is double. And when an ampher, they'll say the amp means on both sides. But it doesn't mean it. It means large, amp. When you amp something up, it's a large in a habitat, It has a larger habitat because it can live in trees and in the water and on land. It's amphibious. An amphitheater is a large theater. They make them outside because they're huge. And your mastes so was in a truce, was poking out there. And this ample of was much, key is a W, W-O-S, was much, M-C-H, much, was mucher in as so was Mila. And Mila is to gather, together. So they tried to clean it up over here, and then they pulled this interpretation that isn't quite good either. And they tried to force this interpretation over these Hebrew writings. And the roof of your mouth was like cayenne. And this like comes from this K, where they put it on the front or the back. K on the front, they'll say it's like. And on the back, they'll say it's your. But this reads WH, and the KIV, and then the EKI with all the vowel points. And it's which give a key, which give here a cayenne. Cayenne is hot, French origin, means hot spice. And it of in, which give here cayenne, it of in. And howlick, HOWLK, and howlick of duty. Of L is of monsieur, and monsieur is, plural, men, and of duty of monsieur, la monsieur, of monsieur him, do bob, the septi. Septi is shit, the septic tank. The septi is in him. So he's bobbing back and forth. He's doing the duty of Monsieur do bob, septi is in. He going down. How lick of duty of Monsieur him do bob, septi is in. He's going back and forth. He's hitting both holes. And this is that base word, I was showing you Anki that they say is I, and they give it the M, because sometimes you'll have another word they say is M, but it's anil, ANIL, the anil duty, volley, VOLY, volley, is to bounce back and forth over the net, and the anil duty volley, tis of two, TIS, it is, UF, of two, and the anal duty volley it is of two, and lick duty, lick the duty in excess, in excess, X in the AE becomes the ES and two S's, in excess, and said in line in a cipherum, in a line in a cipherum, to try to figure out the puzzle in a cipher, in a numerical order. Nuscum hill cremum. Cremum is to make wine of, and nusk is that sweat running out your crotch. And nuscumal cremum. Nearsum porridge. PAURH, the CH, the porridge. And nearsum porridge, the gapon, the GHPHN, the gapon patok, PATOH. And patok is your daughter-in-law. Is emitter, the next to hermonum. Hermonum, same ton, at the hand, yod, daddy lick. At the hand, daddy lick. The due day, mentin, which a rich, and all when itch, top it, top teachin' to. Call my dig from God'em, sheds'em. From the God'em, the gaudy is your dress, from the gaudy and sheds'em. Game. The game is what you're hunting, and the game from in. And season, SISAN, the seasonum. In the game from in seasonum, the duty, it's panty-lick. So it'll be easy to read up top now, make better sense of it, but you have to read it 100 times because there's deeper meaning all throughout here. And I don't remember which movie it was, but I showed you where I found it, I knew that they put the porn on the top, and it's to get a lesser man's mind away from what it really says in here, because in here is all codes to make poisons, drugs, bombs, anything that an alchemist might use in wartime. He might drug his opponents, he might blow them up, and all the directions are in here. And it's hidden underneath the porn. And it's also time in there. The porn is talking about the heavens, It's talking about the interaction of the planets in the heavens. And it tells times. But if you run your cursor over these words, you see the majority of these words in here are used one of one time. Not necessarily, they might be spread out throughout the Bible, but in all these songs, you see it. In most of the Bible, most of the words are one at one time. But especially in all these songs, that they'll give new meanings for these words because they're trying to match it up to something else. But, this apples, you've seen in Greek, the apples was the mila, M-H-L-A, a gather. And here it's a topwitchum. You figure between these two oldest writings, in some language somewhere, that the apple would have kept the same meaning. It was never apples, because his breath was more like a rich, epic, caught up fuck'em. A C-O-T-O-P. The dot says two P's, or a P-F. F-U, and then a chet, the C-H, in the fuck'em, or the cat of fuck'em. And so I looked in that and other movies, and the word apple comes from your word appeal. It's that pretty red color on it, and the shopkeepers would put it out in boxes outside front of their store, and it was the appeal that got people to stop. It was the peel of the apple that had Adam and Eve, eating of the appeal. It sure looked good. So I'll be able to go back to the top now and read down this again, and it'll make it a little easier. I'll see what it's all about, what it's working into. But, when it talks about your head crowns you like Mount Carmel, that makes me think of the dancing girls in Egypt. They would wear these things on their head that look like a mountain of Carmel, like the Mount Carmel, and the hair. And you see here where it's talking about, the head and the hair, and they come to this word and they give it by your tresses. But, it looks like barrette, the barrettes, and it's surely what it's talking about. You wear a mountain of Carmel on your head for your barrettes. And this is where your word Barbies come from, B-O-T, and the text says my, in the B-I-R-B-I, Barbie, my Barbium. And Barbie, ancient word for prostitute. That's why the Jews invented Barbies and given the little girls to play with. And like I said a couple movies ago, there's no possible way that the word breast comes from dick, unless it's talking about between the breasts, Zen is dick. But I read these because it's a subject that I'm acquainted with, and it helps a lot to understand the words in other parts of the Bible, how they put the words together. And but bidding dibs, it called dibs, the come muffy, two M's, the come muffy, jerky kick 'em of, he'll aim, and Mos, and that's the first word in the Bible that says Moses, and most handy a man, not a skillful workman, just a most handy a man. And that means, yo no soy Mariano, soy Capitan. Alright, I'm gonna cut this off here. Good day.
I am the Antichrist, and I approve of this message.